Peace and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josen Tamori Gibson. It's a blessing to be here with you. And thank you to Gil, thank you to Kevin, thank you to the whole IMC community for having me. I'll speak a little bit more about myself later, but if we could just honor coming into community together through a guided meditation. Streaming here from Lenape land. This is unceded Lenape land in northern New Jersey. And it's getting cold. We're not officially in winter, but it is feeling like winter. It's important for me to say all of that because this is what influences this guidance today, along with all the other things. It's been a pleasure following Gil, especially this past week as we enter into the study of the Brahma Viharas together. And last week was metta, loving kindness. And Gil and I connected, and it seems just fitting for me to open up this next week of Brahma Vihara practice by offering karuna, compassion, Karuna, Karuna, karuna. So for anyone who is new to this space, we'll practice for 30 minutes. Be a 30-minute guided meditation, some spaciousness for some silence for you to practice this as you are in your space as well. So as I guide, I'll bring in elements of karuna through our guidance for you to practice with or not. Right? This is an honoring of your agency, of your own practice. This is why we call these guided meditations. And from this particular station, this particular seat that I am occupying in this moment, this is an offering. And so the invitation that's always there is for you to receive it as best as you are able in this moment. As I am doing, as offering as best as I am able in this moment. So inviting all of us to check in with how we are feeling and just noticing the posture that may be of most support for your body, for our bodies in this moment. Within the Metta Sutta, the Buddha mentions various postures: standing, sitting, lying down, walking. Whatever posture we're in, it is a mindful posture. It's a posture that allows us to notice ways in which we may not be aware, ways in which we may not be present, ways in which we may be conditioned to set ourselves up in a particular way without really taking into account how the body is actually feeling and what the body is actually sharing in this moment. So although you may have intended to be in a seated position or a lying down position or a standing position, just really allowing for, in this particular moment, for you to notice what will be supportive right here, right now. Just without judgment, without expectation. This inquiry is compassion. And as you notice what your body is sharing, the body just may want to move a little bit to feel into what is presently alive. You may notice the mind thinking or the mind trying to bring in some habitual patterns, and that's just okay, allowing the mind to be the mind. We're really bringing forward and centering the body in our practice. So as you are settling into this posture, if the visual Dharma door through the eyes is accessible to you in this moment, just allowing yourself to take in your environment, just looking around. Allowing yourself to see your space. And again, you may be noticing some judgment arising or some expectation. Again, that's okay. What we're practicing here is just seeing, noticing where we are through the eyes. And engaging again just through the sense door of seeing, not conceptually seeing what it may be. It doesn't need to be a door, just seeing the object as it is. What is it like to not have a conceptual name placed onto what we are seeing? May we allow the object to present itself in this moment just as it is. Now bringing your awareness to the sense door of hearing, if that is accessible for you. To engage the hearing door a little bit more, you may want to close your eyes. Or as you are hearing, just have a soft gaze in front of you. You can be looking down a little bit, not focusing on anything in particular, but just more of a soft gaze, a blurry gaze, if you will, just softening the eyes as the awareness to sound opens. Just allowing yourself to notice perhaps the furthest sound from you. Noticing how the sounds arises, passes away, floats away, dissolves. Again, noticing if the mind is adding a story or a narrative, a concept to what is being heard. Similarly, allowing those concepts to float away, hearing. Gradually bringing our awareness to sounds that are a little bit closer. Just a little bit closer until you're here with the sound closest to your ear, your ear. This may be my voice. You may also hear sounds coming from the world around me that's surrounding me, but it's in your ear, similar to my voice. Allowing any sounds to just be as they are, allowing them to show up just as they are. Letting go of the hearing practice, the listening practice, and just noticing the sensations around the ear. It's where we are noticing elements of the body. Noticing the ear and your head space. Just noticing what the body is sharing, if there's any tightness or tension. Just noticing. Noticing the jaws, your mouth to your neck. Just allowing yourself to arrive here. At your own pace, checking in as we move down the back, the arms. Noticing. compassionately noticing. Bringing our awareness down to the lower body, noticing our sits bones. If we are on a cushion or a chair or even lying down, begin to notice the earth element, the ways in which we're being held by the room that we were just scanning. Noticing the earth element holding the body as we continue to scan the lower body, arriving. You may begin to notice the body as the earth element. The lower body holding the torso holding the heads and the shoulders, the upper body. Compassionately, without judgments, without expectation. And noticing this earth body breathing, naturally breathing. Breathing with, breathing on behalf, breathing for. This is the air element saying hello. The inhale and exhale. With each inhale, may we compassionately arrive as best we are able in this moment. With each exhale, allowing ourselves to rest in this moment. inviting ourselves to center the breath or the body, or perhaps even sound, if you have a practice with sound, as an anchor, as a reminder of this present moment. Whenever the mind wanders, whenever we are lost in thoughts, whenever we are distracted, we only notice our distraction because of mindfulness, because of awareness. It's at that moment we can decide how to be. So may we be with our intention to be present, returning to the breath or returning to the body, or allowing sound to be our anchor as it arises and passes away. Choosing one anchor, gently being with that one anchor. In these closing moments of our practice together, allowing yourselves to continue practicing, meditating, yet letting go of any habitual states, any formal way of practice, and just allowing yourself to be practice. Noticing what arises. In the moment, I'll ring the bell. This is another opportunity for us to notice what arises, and allowing the body to compassionately and appropriately respond to the sound of the bell, to the close of this session as we enter into another form of practice. Just a couple of words and some gratitude for you practicing with me in that way, allowing me to be a guide and offerer as we connect with each other through these interwebs. For anyone who is here and new to practice, I didn't go into much background in terms of how to anchor with the breath. But if you were to engage with this recording later on, just checking in with where the breath is most prominent in the body. It may be in the belly, the hara, the dantian is below the belly button or the whole belly. It may be in the chest area, right? Or maybe at the nostrils, tip of the nostrils, somewhere around there, where you notice the breath. Or maybe the whole of the breath, the whole in and outflow of the breath, allowing that to be your anchor. And in terms of the body, sometimes it's challenging to be with the body as an anchor. Right? Doesn't matter how seasoned one may be in the practice. Right? This moment is brand new for all of us. And so it could be supportive to just think of perhaps or feel into a 1/4 inch size, maybe at the kneecap of the body, someplace that isn't so active or so energized. And it may be okay for you. It is okay for you to notice some heightened energy if you're in a sitting posture, to perhaps even allow yourself to stand, right? To expend some of that energy in another way. The point is to be mindful when we are moving from one posture to the next, not reactive to anything in particular. And even when we notice reactivity, that's awareness, that's mindfulness being known. And can we then appropriately respond from there? Again, thank you for your practice. I know my dear friend Kevin is going to join in a moment.
Thank you, Josen. So I'd like to just say a few words to introduce Josen to everybody. Good morning. So Josen Tamori Gibson began formal meditation practice in 2004 through Soto Zen while living in Japan, joined by a Theravada practice in 2010. Josen is a participant in the 2017 to 2021 Insight Meditation Society Dharma Teacher Training Program, and also serves on the New York Insight Meditation Center's Teacher Council. With certifications and embodiment studies in yoga, qigong, indigenous focusing oriented therapy, and complex trauma, Josen lives to provide and nourish contemplative mind, heart, body alignment practices and spaces rooted in wellness, anti-oppression, and interdependent liberation for all beings. Josen honors the wisdom and compassion of all teachers, highlighting their mother, Kimi, and Dharma root teacher, Pamela Weiss. Thank you for joining us, Josen.
Having me. Yeah, thank you for your guidance and support, Kevin. It's deeply, deeply appreciated. So again, this is a compassion practice. If you're familiar with practicing in a meditation center, a meditation hall, a zendo, some places you may see a Buddha on one side of the meditation hall. Directly across, you may see Kuan Yin. Kuan Yin, the embodiment of compassion. In Zen centers, in front of the Buddha is Manjushri. Manjushri being the Bodhisattva, these spirits, these embodiments of wisdom. Kuan Yin, compassion. Manjushri, wisdom. And that is a reminder of wisdom and compassion. This metaphor being the birds, the wings of a bird of our practice. In order to fly and to move with some ease, wisdom and compassion move together. They flow together. When we understand that wisdom is arising but not much compassion, there's some difficulty in how we are engaging in the world, perhaps. Or if there's an abundance of compassion but not so much wisdom that's happening, not so much insight or awareness, some other things are happening in our world. In between is mindfulness, the awareness. How aware can we be of what is honoring our wisdom and distracting our compassion, or what may be nourishing our compassion and disconnecting us from wisdom? And in this practice, this Buddha Dharma practice, the Buddha believes, as do I, and has taught, that we are all innately embodying these levels of wisdom and compassion, karuna. But we have been taught in many ways that we need to focus on the headspace, the mind, not the wisdom of the hearts, not the wisdom of the body. Gil beautifully reminded us this past week that what is most fundamental in our life is love. And so if that is most fundamental, may that be where we inquire, what is our relationship with love? We may begin with understanding how we define love for ourselves, or even how love was defined for us. Coming into relationship for ourselves of these terms and this innate being, this innate embodiment, this innate felt sense that may not even have words. Within that understanding, Gil also reminded us that what is most fundamental is love, and everything is is support of love. Everything else supports love, and if not, it is the recipient of love. The recipient of love. And so here in this short offering, I like to focus on the recipient piece. This is an external understanding from an internal place. So what if we would understand, right, the embodiment, the expression of compassion, the recipient of being everything? What if this form in front of you that a mama named Josen, right, what if this form is compassion? What if your form is compassion? Within the Buddha Dharma, this also means that there's wisdom that's present. Within the Brahma Viharas, right, these Brahmin abodes, these heavenly abodes, these dwelling places of these attitudes of the heart's mind, body. Compassion, karuna, Karuna, karuna is when compassion, when love meets the suffering of the world, when it meets some external suffering and internal suffering. So there's compassion that is being met, but then our conditioning comes in somehow, some way. You know, at the top of this pandemic, the top of it for us here in this unceded Lenape territory in northern New Jersey and New York, you know, this was March of 2020. We became the so-called epicenter of coronavirus, COVID-19, for the United States. So many in our community, we started calling coronavirus or COVID-19 the Rona or Rona, especially within our Dharma circles, because we understood Rona as a teacher. We understood that there's something to be learned here. And so how do we receive the lesson compassionately? How do we receive the lesson in the midst of everything else that has been going on in our world, in our lifetimes, for centuries, for millennia? This is what the Buddha saw during his time. This is elements of what the Buddha taught during his time, and he asked of his disciples to bring it into our contemporary modern day times. Compassionately, with wisdom, rooted in classical teachings, the wisdom of the classical teachings, compassionately meeting this day and age, evolving the way in which we meet one another through language, the language of the heart, the language of the body, the disconnect of the minds. This practice is how we can bear witness to suffering, how we learn how to accept what is happening without condoning the causes and conditions that brought it forth. Accepting and condoning, very different. This practice is not easy, though it is simple. We as human beings just find ways to make it challenging, to make it difficult. Can we learn to be compassionate with each other? But we have to learn to be compassionate with ourselves first and foremost. I want to read you a quote. This is from Tanisaro Bhikkhu. And this is a piece on educating compassion. It's a very beautiful piece. It goes very deep and wide and spaciously into how we educate ourselves to be more compassionate. So this is just a small quote from a larger section where Tanisaro Bhikkhu says, "It's a well-known principle in all meditation traditions that a moment's insight into the pain of the present is far more beneficial than viewing the present moment with disgust and placing one's hopes on a better future." Once again, Tanisaro Bhikkhu says and shares that it's a well-known principle in all meditation traditions that a moment's insight into the pain of the present is far more beneficial than viewing the present moment with disgust and placing one's hope on a better future. And so this reminds us of the Pali word, Pali being the language of the written text of the Buddha Dharma, the Buddha's teachings in Pali. The word for mindfulness is sati, S-A-T-I. Right? Many of you are familiar with this. Many of you have heard it translated as such as mindfulness. I feel it's very important for us to remember a key definition of sati being to remember. To remember. We're all going to have our unique doorways and entryways into what we remember and how we remember, our conditioning. And what this practice is asking us to do is to be in awareness of our conditioning, to study and investigate mindfully through the body, through the heart wisdom of our conditioning, to decondition ourselves, to decolonize the ways that we have been taught to be in this world that centers division. That may not be your unique world, that may not be your embodiment, and yet we are living in a world that very much feeds that and nourishes it and supports it and funds it. So accepting that and not condoning. There's one of my favorite, and this is not in comparison, this is not a hierarchy, but favorite in terms of how it resonates with my body. There is this group called the NAP Ministry, NAP Ministry. You can find them online, social media, websites. A beautiful, beautiful group that directly centers a form of compassion that is rest and learning how to rest. Right? It goes against the stream. Against the stream is the way that the Buddha taught this practice. This is going against the stream of dominant culture, the dominant culture that says we need to do. That's a lot of do's. That says, no, there's no need to be. Let's not focus on being. The body and the mind will follow, the body and the heart will follow the mind. Wherever the mind goes, the heart and the body will go. And that's just not true. Our bodies break down, our heart breaks, our mind fights itself. Can we learn how to be in relationship, this deep, compassionate relationship with our bodies, knowing our capacity levels for any given moment? Many of us are engaged in the world. For some, during this pandemic, we have learned folks who have been deeply engaged in the world for generations and generations. Right? We call them frontline workers. Right? Do we understand the ways in which we need to be in relationship with our capacity in this moment to be of support for other people, other beings, all beings, as best as we're able? So there's this grand wish that we practice on behalf of all beings, all sentient beings, billions and billions of beings. But yet in our worlds, right, these smaller pockets of the world, this like Joe Zen's world, for example, on any given day, I may be able to be in connection with 5 people, like actual direct one-on-one connection. I'm not talking about online in this way where so many millions of people can connect. We're talking about how we connect one-on-one or 2-on-2 or small groups. Right? Be mindful of how much energy it takes to engage. We need to eat. We need to rest. We need warmth and we need shelter. We need water. This is my throat reminding me to take a sip. This precious element here. Being in gratitude with all of these forms, not taking them for granted. Allowing ourselves as well to rest, to sleep as a necessity. Some people say, well, when I meditate, I fall asleep and I don't want to do that. So what if we shifted our attitude and our perspective on that? Sometimes when we sit to meditate and we start to fall asleep, yes, we may understand sleepiness as a hindrance, as something that we don't want. But what if it's something that we actually need in that moment? And what if that meditation was soothing enough that allowed us to be who we needed to be in that moment? And that's to sleep. What if? And then it could be the intention at another time if we want to feel into the intricacies and the wisdom that sleep provides the body. Then we can have a little bit more intention and bring some more energy into that intimacy with sleeping as we are meditating. And sometimes when we're sleeping, we bring that inquiry forward. Oh, let's get curious about this. Let's get curious about this felt sense of sleepiness. That in itself can bring some energy, but we want to be mindful of how we do that. That level of energy that comes forward, it can be a way of striving. It can be this subtle way of wanting to do more, wanting to overcome sleepiness. No. We're not interested in overcoming anything. We're interested in being with and allowing that to be our guide through understanding. Again, accepting as it is, not condoning. Compassion, karuna. This is how we begin to remember in the moments, or we come into relationship with understanding the heart body as wisdom, just as we understand sleepiness as wisdom, as compassion, as a place of awareness. Before I close here, I just want to say something about there's been a lot of conversation and a lot of investigation and re-investigation into what compassion fatigue may be for folks. And I am of the deep belief, this is through my own practice and what I've seen in my teachers and my elders, for example, and even the youth have been beautiful guides for me over the years, that compassion itself does not fatigue. Same way as we understand wisdom itself does not fatigue, awareness, mindfulness is not anything that has a finite limit to. These are very deep, old wisdom energies, ancient energies, ancestral energies, old, present, to be energies. We'll be so lucky to get to a point where we could actually view the fatigue of compassion. I don't believe that to be possible, yeah? And so what is actually happening is the mind may be fatiguing. The mind may be bumping up against something. The heart may be bumping up against something. You know, I can go into a million different things. I can go into a million different stories of how we may be othering, pushing away. This separation piece. And so what actually may be happening is within this realm of what some of us are calling like these far and near energies that are either opposites of compassion or masquerading as compassion, right? You may have heard of these as like far and near enemies. I like to refer to them as imposters because they're impersonating our innate selves in these ways. So, for example, a far imposter, something that we are very familiar with, right? It doesn't need much investigation. It doesn't need much inquiry. This far imposter is what we may call cruelty or hatred. Right? In our own lives, we have very familiar relationships with it. Or we know other folks and we're able to see it very clearly when we need to be a resource in that way. When we need to honk the horn to kind of come in the middle and be a resource, compassionate wisdom resource in that way. But that type of sound, that type of reactivity in that horn, we're known with that. We have some familiarity with that. That's more reactive. What we're looking for is more of an appropriate response. The near imposter, the one that takes a little bit more investigation, some curiosity, we name this as pity, Pity. Right? When it's this energy when we are either looking down at someone or separating someone from our experience. We're not connected. We don't understand that we're interconnected in this life. We pity that being or that situation. Well, I'm glad that's not me. Right? There are ways in which this shows up, and it can masquerade as compassion. Many of our ways in which we donate to charity. We feel as if our money can do our talking for us. In many cases, it is a representation how we can extend our reach to places. But if the intention and how we're giving is like, oh, look at those poor people. I kind of pity that situation. I'm glad that's not me. Here's some money. That's not compassion. We're talking about true, interconnected compassion, honoring everything, all things. The foundation of everything as love. Yeah. So I'm going to compassionately close here, reminding us again of Gil's words, where Gil says, pause for a moment, see if anyone else remembers Gil's words. Did you figure it out for yourself for a moment? Okay. We are talking about the fundamentals of love, the foundations of love. Yeah. So Gil says what is most fundamental is love. Everything else is support to love or is the recipient for love. What is most fundamental is love, and everything else supports love or is the recipient for love. And so this week we're practicing the recipients, compassion, self-compassion, understanding our capacities to be with what is in the moment, accepting, not condoning, nourishing our bodies, eating, being warm, sheltered, resting appropriately, to be of service as best we are able in the world for others on behalf of others. Yeah. So that's all for my yip yap. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for showing up here and best as you're able. Thank you for allowing me to enter into your space. Thank you. I'll scan the chat for a little bit just to see what any questions are coming up. Do this for about maybe 5-10 minutes. I saw a question about the NAP organization. I can't put it in the chat, but just look up NAP Ministry. NAP Ministry. They may be notministry.org. If you're on Facebook or Instagram, they'll pop up beautifully. You cannot miss them. They're very, very powerful. Yeah. Yeah. Gratitude for the lovely raindrops in Northern California. Yes. Right. In a way that the rain, in that element of the rain, the water that we talked about a little bit earlier, just noticing the elements from an external perspective, but really from this internal perspective. We notice even the fire element that allows that warmth and that coolness to be known, but also the fire element. We can even look to nature in this way. I know it's hard within um, reconciling this within what's been happening with the wildfires, right? But may we learn from nature in these patterns as we rebuild, as we honor and mourn what we have lost. There's wisdom in these elements. For quite some time, nature herself has used fire to undo and rebuild, to nourish the soil so that new growth can come up. So how are we learning from nature in that way? Yeah. The rainfall, it was raining here earlier this week. It took some while for us to get that level of rain, and we recently got our first snowfall here as well. These rain elements. It's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, sorry for anyone if the audio quality was low for you. I don't know if that's my connection, could be my voice. You may want to turn it up on your end or revisit this recording and turn it up on your end, see if that's helpful. Yeah. And I got a message from Kevin about repeating the reading. I think it may be what I shared from Tanisaro Bhikkhu. I'll repeat that here. It's from Educating Compassion. I'll read it one more time. It's a well-known principle in all meditation traditions that a moment's insight into the pain and present is far more beneficial than viewing the present moment with disgust and placing one's hopes on a better future. Once again, it's a well-known principle in all meditation traditions that a moment's insight into the pain of the present is far more beneficial than viewing the present moment with disgust and placing one's hopes on a better future. That is Tanisaro Bhikkhu, Thanissaro, Bhikkhu, Bhikkhu, from Educating Compassion. Yeah. And so I'm going to stop here right now, yeah. And this is, again, this is an embodiment practice. Being careful as we engage with these questions and these reflections of how we start to come up into this headspace, this cognitive space, and try to figure it out. This is not something that we're trying to figure it out. It's something that we're practicing to be with and then to understand. And from that place, allow yourself to go in and be it, investigate it for yourself. These elements, especially as Gil continues to guide us this week through Gil's perspective on compassion. Yeah. So again, deep gratitude to each of you. I do hope to be at Insight Retreat Center sometime when we can be together in person. Definitely at IMC. I was supposed to be at IMC last year. Something personal came up, but I'll make sure to be there in person at some point as well. Yeah. Thank you all for your practice. Be well to each other. Be well to yourself.